three men embarked on three different journeys in search of adventure and the thrill of a lifetime. However, each of them will meet mysterious and chilling ends that will leave you second-guessing your next trip. Even more bizarre is that the last person's end was caught on tape, and the horrifying video has been seen by over 1 million people. The air was crisp and thin at 10,400 feet on the slopes of the active volcano where Carl stood. His breaths came in short, labored gasps, a familiar sensation for any seasoned climber, but this time something felt off. Carl Landers wasn't your average 69-year-old man. He was adventurous, daring, and strong. In his hometown in Orinda, he was a regular distance runner, an avid climber, and a member of the Orinda Roadrunners. Carl had climbed Mount Whitney, hiked the Grand Canyon, and made several other climbs in Utah and California. He planned to climb the highest peak in every California county, including today's first location, Mount Shasta. One of the most famous myths surrounding Mount Shasta in Northern California is that it is inhabited by ancient, highly advanced beings known as the Lemurians. According to this legend, the Lemurians survived the destruction of their civilization by retreating into the underground tunnels beneath this active volcano, where they continue to reside to this day. Locals also portray this volcano as a dwelling of the Great Spirit, a gateway to other dimensions, and home to beings of light and earth guardians. Since these stories emerged, over a dozen people have disappeared while trying to reach the volcano's peak. Carl wasn't one to be discouraged by myths and folktales. He had climbed the mountain before, only that time he didn't reach its peak due to bad weather and poor health. This time was going to be different. He was more prepared, and he wasn't returning home without reaching the summit. Carl set out to conquer Mount Shasta with his friends and Orinda residents, Milton and Barry. They planned to take the Avalanche Gulch route, the most popular path to the summit of Mount Shasta. While the Avalanche Gulch route wasn't the most technical, it had steep inclines and the potential for sudden weather changes, making it a bit challenging. Undeterred, the group started their ascent from Bunny Flat, an elevation of 6,950 feet. The first leg of their journey was to reach Helen Lake, a major stopping point at about 10,400 feet, where they would set up a high camp. From there, they planned to rest and acclimate to the altitude before making their final push to the summit early the next morning. The ascent from Helen Lake to the summit involves navigating a series of steep snowfields and exposed sections, requiring careful attention and steady progress. Despite their detailed planning, the group was well aware of the unpredictable nature of mountain environments. They had packed all necessary gear, including crampons, ice axes, and sufficient provisions, ensuring they were prepared for any eventuality. However, as the ascent progressed, Carl began to experience symptoms of altitude sickness, also known as acute mountain sickness, a common but potentially serious condition caused by the reduced oxygen levels at higher elevations. Despite his worsening condition, Carl persevered, refusing to lose to the mountain again. He shrugged off his nausea and even set out for Lake Helen before any of his mates. He planned to get a head start, and Barry and Milton would meet up with him. After all, the lake was visible from where they had camped. Weak, sick, and cold, Carl pushed on to Lake Helen while Barry and Milton packed up camp. This was the last time anyone would see Carl Landers. Mount Shasta proved too much for Barry. He returned to Bunny Flat from Camp 50-50. He felt sick, and instead of pushing on like Carl, he made his way back, leaving Milton to complete the journey to Lake Helen. When Milton reached Lake Helen, he found no trace of Carl, and immediately he knew something was wrong. He searched for Carl, but his only lead was a forest ranger who claimed to have seen an older man asking for paths, but even the forest ranger wasn't sure if the man he saw was indeed Carl Landers. There were many hikers, and as day turned to night, Milton feared the worst. He returned to Camp 50-50 and immediately called on the Sheriff's Department for a rescue team. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department started searching immediately, enlisting the assistance of a California National Guard air ambulance helicopter and a California Highway Patrol helicopter equipped with an infrared sensing device. A ground search began the next morning with U.S. Forest Service rangers and volunteers on skis and foot. The search for Carl Landers was intense and thorough. Rescue teams braved harsh weather conditions, including snow and freezing temperatures, to cover as much ground as possible. They followed the Avalanche Gulch route, the most logical path Carl would have taken, and expanded their search to adjacent areas in case he had wandered off course. Unfortunately, their efforts were futile. In June 1999, the search was officially called off, with the case remaining inactive due to a lack of new leads. Carl, who was wearing 2 to 3 layers of clothing, including a rust-colored coat, ski pants, and hiking boots with crampons, was never found to this day. His body, his clothes, and his life were lost to the wilderness. Mount Shasta rises to an impressive elevation of 14,179 feet, 4,322 meters. It stands prominently as the southern end of the Cascade Range, towering over the surrounding landscape. Many have lost their lives traversing the mountain's slippery and icy slopes from falls, bad weather, and loose rocks. The mountain is also known for its diverse ecosystem, which supports a variety of plant and animal life. The surrounding area is home to wildlife like deer, mountain lions, and black bears. The lack of any trace of Carl raises the question of what happened on that mountain. Did someone take advantage of the remote location to commit an undetected crime? Or was it the work of something even more sinister and beyond our understanding? Prabdeep Sran was an experienced hiker and a Canadian soldier with a passion for outdoor adventures. He was fit, reliable, and full of optimism. He had only recently returned from his hometown in Canada to Australia to complete his education as a law student. He enjoyed a physical challenge, and Kosciuszko National Park, known for its stunning landscapes and challenging trails, was Prab's ideal setting. The park is renowned for its unpredictable and often severe weather conditions. Sudden snowstorms, heavy fog, and rapidly dropping temperatures make it pretty difficult to navigate, especially during bad weather conditions. However, the tales of danger that lurked around Kosciuszko National Park didn't bother Prab in the slightest. His background in the Canadian Army Reserve had equipped him with valuable survival skills and a strong sense of discipline. Prab had previously undertaken numerous hiking and camping trips, both in Canada and abroad, demonstrating his capability to navigate and endure challenging terrains. His military training had also planted a thorough understanding of safety protocols and the importance of being prepared for unexpected situations in the wilderness, but no amount of preparation could have saved him. Before setting out, Prab carefully researched the park, studying maps and trail guides to familiarize himself with the routes and potential hazards. He chose a route that would allow him to explore some of the park's most scenic and remote areas, aiming to immerse himself fully in the natural beauty and tranquility of the Australian wilderness. On May 13, 2013, Prabdeep hired a van, bought chips and food at a gas station, and headed for Kosciuszko National Park. He met a park staff, Sarah, who warned him about the weather but gave him a one-day pass when he told her he planned to stay at the Kosciuszko Mountain Retreat that night. Prab set out for the Charlotte Pass, a popular starting point for many hikes within Kosciuszko National Park. He had parked his rented van near the staff quarters of Charlotte Pass Ski Resort, and it wasn't until 6 days later that one Michael Hopkins reported that Prab was missing. Prab was no stranger to the wilderness, but this time, the wilderness would become a stranger to him. Hopkins was a caretaker at the resort, and when he first noticed the van, he thought nothing of it. It wasn't unusual for tourists and bushwalkers to park around that spot, so he went on with his business. There was a bad storm that day, just as Sarah had predicted, and over the next few days, heavy snowfall blanketed the area. Hopkins noticed no footprints or signs of activity near the van. He observed that there was no condensation on the windows, suggesting no one was sleeping inside. By Saturday, May 18, 2013, as the weather improved, Hopkins inspected the van more closely and saw a national parks permit valid for only 1 day. Concerned, he called the van rental company, who informed him that the van was overdue and they couldn't contact the driver. Hopkins knew that something had gone wrong, so he called the police. Efforts to contact the van rental company were initially unsuccessful, but it was soon confirmed that Prabdeep had rented the van. The search for Prabdeep Sran, missing in the vast and rugged expanse of Kosciuszko National Park, was extensive, but as Prab had gone solo, the search party had little to no clue where to look. The search for Prabdeep Sran involved a significant and coordinated effort from multiple agencies, all working tirelessly under challenging conditions to find any trace of the missing hiker. Police officers from New South Wales, Victoria, and the Australian Federal Police, many of whom had specialized training in alpine conditions, formed the core of the search operation. In addition to the police, over 34 staff members from the National Parks and Wildlife Service, NPWS, of the Southern Ranges region were actively involved in various roles, including search operations, support, management, and technical tasks. The aerial search component was robust, utilizing a variety of helicopters to cover large areas of the park. This included police helicopters from NSW Polair and an AFP-contracted helicopter, as well as additional support from Southcare, Lifesaver 3, and a private contractor from Jindabyne. These aircraft, equipped with advanced technology such as thermal imaging cameras, scanned the landscape for any signs of Prob Deep, but all efforts proved futile. What the search team didn't know was that Prob was doomed from the start. The only things Prob knew about the park he got from the NSW Parks and Wildlife Service website. The paths to follow, the distance, the average time it took to complete a hike, and all that. They were all there, but Prob chose the main range trail. The main range trail is not the hardest route to follow. If anything, it was a popular choice for many who have completed the hike. However, the details about the path were wrong. The site reportedly indicated that it was a 12.5 kilometer, 4.5 hour walk, when it was actually a 22 kilometer, 8 to 9 hour walk. For Prob, the walk has now taken 10 years. There has been no trace of his body or the jeans and jacket he wore on his final adventure. Since then, his family has spent over $400,000 frantically searching for their boy. This final disappearance is even more bizarre than the last two and was captured by surveillance footage. In the summer of 2014, Lars decided to vacation in Bulgaria with a group of close friends. The trip was filled with excitement and anticipation as they looked forward to sunny beaches and vibrant nightlife. The first few days were everything they had hoped for, relaxing on the beach, enjoying local cuisine, and soaking in the vibrant atmosphere of Varna. The group was only in town for a week and was expected to leave on July 7, 2014. Time went by quicker than they may have liked, so a day before they returned home, Lars and his friends decided to visit a popular bar, a decision that would change their lives forever. Lars was very passionate about football. He was a staunch supporter of the German club Werder Bremen. He wasn't one to easily get into a fight, but he and his friends ran into a group of Germans who supported a rival club and got into a bitter argument with them. Angry, Lars left the bar earlier than his friends, and they allegedly didn't see him until the next morning, the day of their departure. When he returned, he looked beaten and attacked. He had run into the same group of men at the bar, and they or some locals beat him so badly that he fractured his jaw and ruptured an eardrum. Their return trip looked to be in jeopardy as Lars was in no condition to fly, as confirmed by a doctor who went on to prescribe 500 milligrams of the antibiotic cefprozil to prevent his wounds from becoming infected. He was also advised not to travel, and while his friends initially offered to stay back with him, he insisted that they leave without him. He was fine, and he joined them back in Germany. Little did he or his friends know that things were about to take a dark turn. After his friends left, Lars checked into a different hotel. It was cheaper, but closer to the airport, just what he wanted. However, as soon as he settled into his room, he went berserk. First, hotel cameras captured Lars Matank on video, showing him hiding inside an elevator and leaving the building at midnight, only to return hours later. Then, in a whispered, frantic phone call to his mother, Lars claimed that people were trying to rob or kill him. He also sent her a text message, asking about his medication and urging her to block his credit cards. The closed-circuit television cameras in the hotel recorded Lars Matank pacing up and down the halls, peering out of windows and hiding in an elevator. At 1:00 a.m., he left the hotel, only to return about an hour later. His actions during that period remain unknown. The next morning, Lars called his mother again, his voice filled with urgency, telling her that the people pursuing him were getting closer. When it got bright enough, Lars headed for the airport. It was the 8th of July, 2014. When he got to the airport, he headed straight for the doctor's office to check on his injuries, and he was given the go-ahead to fly. Yet he remained nervous and asked about his medications. Lars's last words were, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here," before leaving the doctor's office. He dropped his belongings on the floor and sprinted down the hall. Once outside the airport, security footage showed him climbing over a fence and on the other side, disappearing into a nearby forest. Even though the video of his disappearance has been seen by millions over the internet, Lars has never been seen again. There are speculations that Lars's behavior and disappearance were a result of an untreated mental illness or the effect of the antibiotic the airport doctor prescribed for his injuries. The drug known as cefprozil is a cephalosporin that is known to induce psychotic side effects like fever, shortness of breath, hallucinations, and paranoia. However, the airport doctor, Dr. Kosta Kostov, claims that Lars never filled out a prescription sheet for the drug, so he wasn't even on any meds. Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, leave a like and subscribe.